Hello again, EP time. Another overlooked example of an underappreciated format. This one, a sweet spot release from a US guitar band landing smack dab in the middle of a 4-album run, the equal of any of their peers. Yeah, this is 1997's The Anatomy of Sharks by June of 44. As perfect an artifact of late 90s post-hardcore, post-whatever culture as you could hope to find. The meticulous matchbook style packaging, minimal information, track names, personnel, that's your lot, and 3 tracks which, of course, clock up a combined runtime of almost 23 minutes. The reliance of digital music distribution on metadata has spawned a universe of micro-genres that this kind of music could happily sit in. I've given you post-hardcore already, but there's post-rock, math rock, noise rock, mathcore, indie rock, alt-rock. It's inevitably all rather self-defeating, and in the case of a band like June of 44, who were slowly shedding the complexity, loosening the structures, their songwriting evolving, detrimental even. So just call it underground rock, if you like, and take it for what it is, that being a kind of hinge release in this band's discography. The preceding albums, 95's The Engine Takes to the Water and 96's Tropics and Meridians, are dense, complex constructions, all interlocking parts, shifting meters, and layered dynamics. Those following, 98's 4 Great Points and 99's Anahata, become progressively freer, less guitar-centric, focused much more on expression, on texture than technique. And the Anatomy EP sits squarely in the middle of that continuum. The band are audibly becoming something different. June of 44 took their name from the writing of Henry Miller, both his longer form content and his many letters to his wife June and fellow writer, lover Anais Nin. There's a quote from Miller's 1934 novel, A Tropic of Cancer, which I think kind of fits here. A year ago, 6 months ago, I thought I was an artist. I no longer think about it. I am. The Engine album was, so it goes, written and recorded from scratch in 4 weeks by a band still getting to know each other. June of 44 were Jeff Mueller, ex of Rodan, also Shipping News, Sean Meadows of Lungfish, Doug Sharin on drums, ex of Codeine and Rex, and Fred Erskine on bass, at One Time Hoover and the Crown Hate Ruin. In the days of 70s rock and roll excess, this might constitute a supergroup, but coming together out of variously the Louisville, DC and New York underground scenes, a far more grounded affair, like-minded musicians who'd shared tours and bills, coming together just to see what would happen. Those first few albums feel like Miller's thinking about being an artist. Great, muscular, surprising records, but tied to a nautical theme that kept them moored whilst they were still feeling each other out. And the Anatomy EP, I think, marks the culmination of this phase. On Seemingly Endless Steamer, the vocal duties shared between Jeff and Sean are broken up by Fred, taking the lead, a first for the band, in a song that feels like a clearing of the decks, closer to pure post-hardcore than anything they'd recorded thus far. Fred's bordering on screamo delivery adorns a convulsive number, smashing back and forth between a wavering, sleepy, Slint-esque reprise and crunchy, sinewy, DC-flavoured outbursts. It's all very Hoover, but clearly still June of 44. That shifting of the song's focal point, always the singer, isn't it, is a clear signifier that this was a band of equals. No leaders, no egos, no preconceptions. They would ultimately bend in a very different direction stylistically, and never again skewing as punk rock as they did on Seemingly Endless Steamer, but their process highlights an ethos that they would stick to, for better or for worse. As evidenced on Boom, Steamer's polar opposite, a first and very different take on Anahata's opening track that was Where Two Eyes brackets Boom. A low-frequency klaxon, a synth, a feedback pulse, a reverberant drone accompanied by an assortment of percussion, Sharin's rolling go-go drums, and topped off with Erskine's sad jazz trumpet lines. Boom is the first evidence on record of the band's direction of travel over the next few years. Looser-limbed, landlocked compositions, seeded on 4 great points, their last truly great record, and in full flower on that interesting but incoherent final album. If you really want to play the genre game, you could argue that this track marks that crossover point from post-hardcore to post-rock. And yeah, on this EP, that leap is a very abrupt one. The Juno 44 of Anahata feel like they're trying too hard for something else, whilst never successfully capturing what that actually was. Retrospective interviews with Jeff Mueller, at least, seem to acknowledge this. I think we felt like the recordings for Anahata were incomplete, he said in 2022, whilst explaining the motivations for their reform, remake, remodel LP of 2020. That's Revisionist, Adaptations and Future Histories in the Time of Love and Survival. But I digress. Back to the real reason I'm choosing to talk about the Anatomy of Sharks here, namely its 11-minute opener, Sharks and Sailors. If Steamer kind of referenced the band's past and Boom, its future, Sharks and Sailors was all about the now, and for me demonstrates them operating at their absolute peak. The 90s feels, looking back, like the swan song of the single-only release, the EP, as a genuine cultural artefact, not just collector bait. The underground of the time got this. There are countless examples of non-LP tracks that are essential. Shellac's run of early singles, Jehu's Bullet Train to Vegas, Tortoise's Gamera, many, many more, and amongst them, Sharks and Sailors. An 11-minute epic in the same vein to Rodan's, that's Jeff's old band, The Everyday World of Bodies. It's a song that travels from heavy to hushed, from groovy to guttural and back again. Detuned, staccato riffing, the guitars ricocheting and detonating like strung out sea mines. It's a masterclass in orchestrated drama and flow. Doug Sharin's drums pivot from pinpoint gun cracks to deliciously slurred military rolls. Erskine's bass purring and tugging at the melody lines, veering off into dubby mini quests before snapping back into story mode, back into lockstep. Musically, it's very much a track of those first 2 albums. The structural complexity, however, always serving the bobbing momentum of the composition. There are fewer of the woozy details of a track like Tropics' Lawn Bowler. It feels like a synthesis of Shellac's serrated riff-first approach, the light shade, contrast of Slint, and Tortoise's residual grooviness. Exceedingly Louisville stroke Chicago. Away from the chorus's repeated yells of Sharks and Sailors, the lyric is as open to interpretation as ever. So interpret I shall. Muller's associative style is never explicit or overt in its use of themes, and whilst that's still the core here, there are clues. For those of a certain age, me, Jeff, presumably, there are broad stroke cultural reference points which, unless I'm much mistaken, peek through in a few key passages. An unbridled attention for the clouds in the shadow of the almighty lighthouse. They become thieves and murderers when the night happens. So, do you see it? A Spielberg thing? On the surface, of course. Sharks, sailors, well, it's Jaws, right? Yeah, tilt your head a little and you might even make out Quint's recounting of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis in 1945. The clouds could refer to a mushroom cloud, to the atom bomb, parts of which were transported by the Indianapolis prior to the bombing of Nagasaki. The shadow of a lighthouse, the stern of the ship maybe, towering above the drifting sailors before it finally sank. The thieves and murderers in the night, the white-tipped sharks picking off the dead and the injured in the water as the survivors spent days on the open sea, the covert nature of the ship's mission, meaning its sinking went unreported, unnoticed. Returning like superheroes, unforgettable as sunken ships, sings Mueller. The survivors maybe? The repeated refrain of Parson Stowe. the names of the metal workers who reforged the Liberty Bell when it cracked. The idea, the imagery of a bell being tolled when a ship returns safely to port. It all makes a weird kind of sense to me. It feels to me like this imagery is in there, but to what purpose? What does the song mean? Well, you've got me there. The shame, damage, conflict, I've lost face, crashing bowls in the hull of a failing boat, rot and tobacco saturate into everything. But if there is something deeper, something tying together these cinematic memories, historic references, the images of imperiled men at the mercy of the sea, then it's not something ready to give itself up very easily. And really, why should it? Henry Miller, again, once wrote of existing in a world without hope, but no despair. Living in the moment, the liberation that comes from being free of expectation or ideals. Modern life makes that tough. And while we can't all live like bohemian expats, drinking and fornicating our way around exotic foreign lands, then losing yourself in art, in literature, in music is as close as you're going to get. And although it may sound a bit scary, sharks and sailors make excellent travelling companions. There you go, episode 8, Unit 44, The Anatomy of Sharks. Yeah, please take my free-spirited reading of the lyrics of Sharks and Sailors with a pinch of salt. The main thing is it's just the best track they ever got down on record, I think, and the fact that it just sits on an EP is something that, you know, means that people, average listeners, if they're looking up discographies, well, they might just miss it. As is the custom, comments, suggestions, thoughts, down below, please. Yeah, what do you think of Unit 44, and what do you think of this EP? And also, what do you think of their trajectory as a band? Like I say, with that final album, they kind of lost me a little. Thanks for hanging with me for this one again. Yeah, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please think about giving it a like. And yeah, why not subscribe if you haven't done so already. And with that, I'm out of here. Yeah, I hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Please do take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.